If you're like most people, then you have that little voice inside your head that tells you that you're not good enough, that you're a failure, that you're going to mess it up again. That little voice, that is your inner critic or your inner voice. In this video, I'm going to break down what is the inner critic, how it shows up and where it comes from, and most importantly, what you can do about it to help work with it rather than to fight against it. If you've ever been stuck in self-doubt, in perfectionism or shame, or just stuck up in your own thoughts with that inner critic, this video is for you. You might be thinking, who am I? Well, if you're new to this channel, hello, I'm Simone. I'm a coach, a former occupational therapist, and I help people to create more joy, more calm, and more ease in their lives. If you stay till the end of the video, I'm also going to confess to something that I guess is a little bit embarrassing now in hindsight, but perhaps you'll relate. So first of all, what is the inner critic? As I said, it's that inner voice that tells us that we're not good enough, that voice that might say things like, you're such an idiot, or you're so stupid, or you're so silly, you'll never be enough. You'll never be smart enough, good enough, pretty enough, thin enough, rich enough, whatever it might be. Why even bother? Inner critic is not the same as that wiser, more knowing, more intuitive voice that sometimes we might hear as well. The inner critic is that harsher, much, much more negative, critical voice that we hear inside our minds. It's that critical part of our mind that wants to keep us safe, but ends up holding us back. And this inner critic is part of our survival. It's part of how we've been wired to keep ourselves safe. Our brains have evolved over time to scan for threats. And in this modern world, our biggest threat can sometimes be failing or fear of failing, that fear of being rejected or not being perfect. And so our inner critic, that inner voice, is there to protect us from those things, protect us from failure, protect us from rejection, protect us from being imperfect. So how does this inner critic show up? And it shows up in different ways for different people. So for some, it could be sounding like a perfectionist. You should have done better than that, or that wasn't good enough, or you are not enough, you're not smart enough, you're not perfect enough, you got that wrong again. For others, it might be more like an imposter. So who do you think you are? Why do you think you can do that? So it depends on who you are and also on where your inner critic might have developed from. So it can lead to procrastination, it can lead to people pleasing, to overworking and to burning out. It can lead to paralysis from this fear of failure, and it can just contribute to that overall sense of constantly feeling not enough, not worthy enough. So if you've been feeling stuck or emotionally drained by that constant noisy inner critic, then you're definitely not alone. Next, I'm going to talk about where this inner critic actually comes from. Now, I personally have found it really, really helpful to understand what is the inner critic, where it comes from, how it shows up, so that then I can actually implement strategies to help me work with it rather than fight against it. So why do we have an inner critic and where does it come from? Your inner critic is shaped by your past and personal experiences, especially those early ones. So thinking about our childhood, it might echo things that you've heard, say, your parents say, or teachers. It could be just something that one teacher said when you were in grade 2, and that inner voice is still there today and having an impact on your life and influencing how you show up in the world. It could be from other authority figures. It might even be part of something that a bully has said to you before. That inner critic can be formed by all of these key experiences or past experiences. It can also come from cultural and societal expectations. So, what does it mean to be a good girl or a good boy, or a parent or a professional or a partner? All of these fixed kind of ideas about society and who we should be. So our inner critic is made up of all of these things, and our inner critic is very unique to us and to those past experiences. So if you grew up in a home where, you know, your parents didn't give you a lot of encouragement or love and support, perhaps they were quite critical of you, they had high expectations of you, then often that will shape us and our inner critic. The goal of the inner critic, though, believe it or not, is to keep you safe and to protect you. Our inner critic thinks, you know, if it's hard enough on you, if it's critical enough of you, that it will help you to improve, it will help you to try harder, it will avoid failure, it will mean that you might be accepted. So our inner critic is there to protect us and to keep us safe from all those things like failure, you know, feeling unworthy, etc. But often all it does in reality is keeps us small and keeps us very stuck. So what do we do then when we have this harsh inner critic that controls us, that's riding around in our minds like it owns the place? Well, there's 3 practical tips that I would like to cover today, utilizing acceptance and commitment therapy practices that I personally use and I also use with clients. So the first tip is defusion, which is creating space from the inner critic. Defusion means learning that your thoughts are just thoughts. They're not necessarily truth. They're not commands that you must follow, and they're not always facts. So accepting that our thoughts are just thoughts, and our inner critic is a type of thought that we have. So when we're diffusing from our thoughts, you can say things like, I'm noticing the thought that I'm not good enough. I'm noticing that I'm having a thought that I'm a failure or I'm not worthy. Or you could even try diffusing the thought by imagining that critical inner voice, that inner critic, as a radio station in the background. So it could just be like this radio station that's playing in the background. It doesn't mean that you have to listen to it, that you're following it or paying attention to it. So you could try that diffusion technique as well. And in a future video, I'll share more diffusion techniques that you can try out to see which one works best for you. I personally find the simple practice of just noticing that I'm having the thought, interesting, I'm having a thought that I'm going to stuff it up. Interesting, I'm having a thought that I feel really unworthy today or not valuable. Or, I'm having a thought that, and you fill in the blanks. The second tip that I have to work with your inner critic is to befriend it. Now, this might sound counterintuitive, but bear with me. This tip is all about, instead of fighting it or trying to shut it down or trying to get rid of it, it's about acknowledging it. So this might look like thanking your inner critic. So how you can do this, you could say, thanks mind, I know you're trying to help, but I've got this. So perhaps it is that you're having this fear that you're going to stuff something up, something new you're trying, you're putting yourself out there. Thanks mind, I know you're trying to keep me safe, but I've got this. So it's acknowledging that there is an inner critic there is a voice there, it's having awareness of that voice and just thanking the mind, thanking it and befriending it, understanding that it's there to protect you, to try and keep you safe. But this can be a really effective strategy as well. This also shows compassion to yourself. You know, it disarms the critic's power, if you like, by, you know, not buying into what it actually says, but acknowledging it. So think of it as thanking, you know, an overprotective friend who might have a good intention and means well, but doesn't always quite get it right. So the third tip is to actually name your inner critic. Now, it might sound silly, but it actually works. And I have a lot of clients who have found this particularly helpful. So this tip is to actually give your inner critic a name. It could be Negative Nancy, or it could be Mavis or Bob. You get to choose what you want to call your inner critic. So by giving it a character, by giving it a name, it externalizes this, but it also helps us to build more awareness, to build that awareness muscle of when this inner critic starts to take over. And it stops us from blending into our identity. So it means that we're not fusing with this inner critic thought, that we have that awareness that we are not our thoughts and we are not the inner critic. So your inner critic might always be around, and I would suggest that you get rid of this idea that you're going to ever get rid of that inner critic. Even after years of working with strategies like these, I still have an inner critic. I still have a voice that tells me no one's going to watch my videos, or perhaps they're not helpful, or who am I to do YouTube videos, or it might be something totally different. It might be, you know, when I want to sleep in on a weekend, that inner critic that tells me I'm lazy and I should get up. So our inner critic is always going to be there. So get rid of the idea that you can get rid of it completely. But what we can do is understand it, work with it, acknowledge it, and have strategies so that we can diffuse with those thoughts, which means we're not fusing with them, we're not becoming that thought, we're not getting pushed around, you know, tied up with those thoughts, jerked around by those thoughts, those inner critic, harsh, negative thoughts, and that we can go forward and live the life that we want and live a life that is aligned with our values and what's important to us. And with practice, you can get better at acknowledging it, at noticing it, at separating from it, creating space and distance from it, and choosing to move towards the life that you want rather than getting knocked about by these inner critic thoughts. And with courage and self-compassion, we can show up in the way that is aligned with our values and what matters most to us. So let me know in the comments, what is something that your inner critic says to you? And which of these tips do you think you'll try out? Perhaps if you are trying one of them out, let me know which one works best for you. And I'd love to know if your inner critic has a name. Feel free to share that too. And the last thing I wanted to share in today's video was this confession, I guess, around I thought I was the only one that had an inner critic. So when I first became more aware of this inner voice, of this inner critic, I felt a huge sense of relief because I really believed that there was something wrong with me, that I was broken, and that I was the only one in the world that had these inner critic thoughts. When I realized that actually everybody has them and no one is immune to the inner critic, I just felt such a sense of relief and validation, and I didn't feel broken anymore. So perhaps this is you, perhaps this is a first time that you're learning about the inner critic. If it is, let me know in the comments as well if that brings you a sense of relief, that we all have this inner critic that we grapple with, no matter what our upbringing was like, no matter what our childhood was like. We all have an inner critic that likes to deliver us with some negative, critical, harsh advice. And it is just there to keep us safe. So if you found this video helpful, please do let me know. About 91% of people who watch my videos aren't subscribed, so I would encourage you to subscribe to my channel if you would like to hear more from me and be notified when I put out a new video. And also consider subscribing to my newsletter, where I share more information and tips with my community. So thank you so much for being here. If you've stayed till the end, I'm very grateful for each and every person who watches my videos, and I absolutely love hearing from you. So please do be sure to leave me a comment, and I'll see you in the next video.